sorry.
It's a good start. Okay.
Right. Tell me your name and where you live, please.
My name is Tracy Watkin and I live in Tregaron.
And can you just start by telling me how long you've lived in Tregaron?
I've lived here 13 years.
And you've clearly been here quite a while, but you're not originally from Tregaron.
No,
Tell me.
you may tell from my accent.
Tell me a little bit about your journey from where you were before Tregaron to eventually arriving in Tregaron. Tell me a little bit something about that.
So I'm originally from Ramsgate in Kent. I went to university and from there in Cheltenham in Gloucestershire, and from there went to work at the Ritz Hotel in London, where I met Dyfed Watkin. He was working as a premier sous chef and I was working in the events department, and we met and obviously fell in love, and he then said that he was looking to move back to Wales where his family were from, and he wanted to have his own business. Would I come with him? And I said, well, you're not leaving me behind. Of course I'm coming with you. His dad had already started looking at various places within Ceredigion, but we came to see the Talbot on the square in Tregaron, and sort of rubbed our hands a little bit and thought how much potential the place has got, before we even really knew too much about the reputation that it had. We from a business side, it was a big property to take on from not having our own business to come into that, but no, we're glad we did. It was the right move.
So arriving in Tregaron 13 years ago, what were your first impressions of Tregaron, coming from Ramsgate and coming from the Ritz?
Yes. Well, I was only in London for about 2.5 years actually, which Dyfed was there for 13 years. So in comparison, not very long, but I soon realised how out of my depth I was. It was a much bigger place than where I was happy to be, if that makes sense. So coming to Tregaron felt a lot more manageable. I from the first couple of weeks, I enjoyed more walking down the street and being able to say hello to people. Just a quick hello in passing, without them thinking you had an ulterior motive or that you were some weirdo. So it's the community aspect of it that I really enjoyed.
The Talbot is pretty famous, one of Wales's most famous pubs, hotels, iconic to look at and iconic to be in as well, with a lot of history and heritage. What did you discover in terms of the past of the Talbot that made you think, oh right, this is an important place? When we
were setting ourselves up in the flat above the pub, when we first moved in there, my now mother-in-law, Dyfed's mother Barbara, took me down to Cardiff to go and get some household items, and we went into John Lewis to buy a washing machine, and the guy asked where we want it delivered to, and he said, I know the Talbot. Tregaron is in front of the Talbot. And it was then I really, if some guy that works in John Lewis knows the Talbot, then this is bigger than what I thought it was going to be. Its reputation is very far spread. It's yeah.
Oh, and living above the pub comes with its own situation. How easy was it to settle in living above the pub there?
It was difficult because you're in work 24/7. But not just that, you're living above a pub, which 13 years ago was very different to what it is now. It was a lot noisier. The night, the closing was a lot later. Even 13 years ago, people had more money to spend on alcohol then. The drinking in Tregaron was very different. So yeah, it was a challenge living above. Rasses weekend, our first Rasses weekend especially, was pretty hard going. Security is not at its best at the Talbot. It certainly wasn't back then. And Dyfed heard some noises in the middle of the night and went to go and investigate. And in the office just next to the flat, there was a couple fornicating. And Dyfed told them sternly to leave the premises.
Yes, these Rasses weekends are very famous for trotting and many other things. And I'm sure lots of people have met future life partners just by coming to Tregaron and to the Talbot. Your role in the Talbot at the beginning, and has it changed at all? What's been your role from arriving?
So my role, I suppose when we first arrived, one of the previous owners, Sian Rees, was still on board at that point. She was with us for the first year actually, and my role was really to support her in all the changes that we were facilitating, I guess. She needed a bit of support. She'd been there a long time, and we wanted to make it a bit more professional, let's say. And because of Dyfed and his expertise, we wanted to focus it a lot more on the food. So the business was going to evolve and change, and my role at that point was to support Sian through that and to implement a lot of the changes front of house. And then a year went by and she left, and I took on more of the management roles. But then we had our daughter Larry, and I took a step down just to take some of the pressure off with a child. And I'm getting back into management again slowly. So yeah, it's been ups and downs in the last 13 years for me.
By the time Larry was born, you weren't still living above the pub, were you?
Oh no, we moved out of there in 2012, so we were there just over 2 years in the flat above the pub, and by that time we got a little dog, Stevie, so he needed a garden, so we moved just up the road, actually just 10 minutes walk away from, so we're still within reaching distance of the Talbot, but not on the premises, which is nice.
You mentioned their up and downs. Can you possibly share some of the ups and downs of being in the Talbot for the last 13 years?
Work-wise, or?
Yeah, work-wise, yeah.
Well, we had different managers in, and they've all got their different ideas of how they want to do things. And I've worked in hospitality all my working life since I was 16, so I've got my way of doing things. They've got theirs, and it wasn't always easy going. But having Mick and Nia Taylor on board, the other two shareholders, because when we got the Talbot, obviously Dyfed was a shareholder in the business. That was what his aim was when he left London. So 6 months after we arrived, Mick and Nia Taylor came on board. They financed a lot of the refurbishment of the business, and I've had my ups and downs with them as well. We've all just got our own way of doing things, really. Yeah. And
such is the world of business, where you have to work together,
compromise. Yeah.
What kinds of compromises can you think of? Maybe you think of one.
I think in terms of the food, Dyfed wanted to initially do a separate menu in the bar and the restaurant, and it took us a while to come round to mix idea of thinking, the bar menu actually works better in both areas, and it was taking Dyfed away a little from the cooking that he was used to in London, more of the fine dining dishes that he was used to doing. But we are now at a point with the menu where it works in all areas of the building, and it involves a mixture of the finer dishes, like duck leg and pork belly, and some nice fish dishes, and the pub favourites like burgers and fish and chips. But it wasn't just compromise with management and other staff either. It's always been a compromise with the locals in Tregaron as well, because of the Talbot's reputation and how, quite a large part it plays in Tregaron. You're having to work alongside people that have known it for years and years. So changing the menu and taking things like, the very old pub classics like gammons and lasagnas and things off the menu to accommodate more of Dyfed's cooking, the customers have had to get used to the changes as well as the staff. So,
and moving away slightly from work, family life. What's it like bringing up a little family with your daughter here? What's family life like here in the community of Tregaron?
Nice, really nice. When I first had Larry, it was a bit overwhelming because I didn't have any other mummy friends at that point. The only friends I had were locals from the pub and people that I'd worked with at Talbot. So it was a case of having to get myself out there and meet more local people to get the support for when we had Larry. So I became very involved in the family centre, and learnt a lot more about Tregaron life from a different perspective, and I even did Welsh language classes in learning Welsh for at a different level, like teaching my daughter the names of colours and shapes and numbers, and a more basic level. So no, it's have I gone adrift now?
No.
That's
fine.
I feel like I've diverged now from the question you asked.
And clearly with the Welsh language, and it'd be lovely to see your daughter flourish. Dyfed also speaks Welsh.
He does.
From a Welsh-speaking family.
Yeah.
How does he help with Welsh in terms of you to start with?
Well, he doesn't. He think whenever I start speaking a little bit of Welsh, it gives me a look. He's not used to it. Even after 13 years, he thinks it's weird that I speak some Welsh. But Larry's very fluent. She speaks Welsh with her 9 all the time, and no, she's getting on really well with her Welsh.
And what do you think of the community life here in Tregaron in terms of how everybody gets on and how everybody works together, and in some respects relies on each other in a very small rural community? How do you think, can you turn to so and so to do something for you at a drop of a hat?
Well, that's one of the benefits of being at the Talbot, is that everybody knows the Talbot, and then everybody in turn knows you, who you are, and if you need, you meet a lot of people through that, and if it's a question that I had for one of the locals in the pub, I know which one to go to. And I was involved in the Tregaron Carnival for a while, so I've made a lot of other contacts through that. It's important, like, and with the family centre as well, getting involved in other projects outside of the Talbot. You get to know, and I know if I ever needed anything, I know who to go to, I find everybody in Tregaron will help one another if they can. if that's their area and they, you know who to ask, and there's no, it's much better than being in London. Much better.
Yeah, I myself, I think you can turn to somebody, if they say no today, they might be able to say no, yes tomorrow, type of thing. So
yeah,
it's
well, like you're a fine example of that as well, because I've had guests come and stay at the hotel that have wanted to learn a bit more about where to go walking in the area, and I've been able to call you, and you know, if you're at home, if you're available, you've been down there like a drop of a hat and talked to the people, or even take them out for a walk. I remember you took my parents, didn't you?
I remember I remember meeting you for the first time on I think it would have been a Sunday morning. You just arrived. I'd just heard in the grapevine the jungle drums of Tregaron were beating a little bit louder, saying there were new people there, and I can remember actually walking in, meeting you and David. I knew David's parents from way back. So it was nice to have that new blood element coming into the Talbot after all these years, centuries, and having worked with Sian and Graham at the Talbot on many projects over the years. It was an interesting moment in Tregaron's history when new people arrived. and of course we do think a lot of the pub, the hotel, and the service the pub, the hotel has provided to the community for many years. Let's come back to the carnival there, because I know you asked me to do something for the carnival many years ago, to be a photographer for it.
Yes.
Was that the only carnival you organised?
That particular year?
Yes.
No, I was involved for a good few years actually. It was originally run by the WI, and Catherine Hughes, who was the councillor for Tregaron, she's got a funny way of talking you into things, as I'm sure you well know. So the first meeting that I attended was under the premise that the Talbot would be providing the bar, a beer tent, and then I got asked to come to more and more meetings, and then the year after, or 2 years after, I think I was secretary for the carnival. So it kind of developed there. But no, I enjoyed it. It was good.
What kind of background information did you receive about the past of the carnival, in terms of how the carnival had been organised in the past, and how it was, well, changing really to meet the needs and demand of present day life, as it were?
Yes.
What did you know about the history and heritage of the carnival? You mentioned the WI there.
Yeah,
briefly.
so there was a couple of members of the WI that was still on the committee when a new committee was formed, and I got shown lots of pictures. I think Catherine herself was a carnival queen at one point. You know, there was a lot of tradition that I was taught about, and it was all. I think maybe the year before I got involved with the beer tent, it was on the square outside the Talbot, but because of health and safety and the cost of closing off the square for the event, it became unviable. So it got moved up to the Tregaron Mart, and they've been very kind, providing the mart at no cost, and allowing us to use the electric there for the speakers and things. So I think, like you say, modern life kind of took the increase of traffic around the square. You can't have lots and lots of children running around enjoying themselves, whereas up the mart there's a lot more room. and it's been successful up there. Yeah.
And what's the current status of the carnival?
Well, there's a new committee taken over. In fact, just last night I saw that they've updated the Facebook page with new images and logos, and they've started an Instagram page. So again, it's evolving into the 21st century now, which is nice. I know a bit about Facebook, but Instagram would just go straight over my head. So I think it's gone to the right people now.
And will you be involved with this new phase of the carnival?
Anything I can do to help if they ask. I always enjoyed obviously the carnival I enjoyed, but also the fundraising aspects around the rest of the year as well, like doing raffles and things at the Christmas fair to raise money for the carnival. Before COVID, actually, I was due to arrange a bingo night for the carnival, and obviously that had to get cancelled. But yeah, anything they ask for of the Talbot or myself, I'll be happy to help. It's a really good community family day. Fancy dress and getting all the generations involved. And the sports that happen afterwards, for the kids to kind of burn off all that energy. No, it's a really lovely day. It's a good family day.
How would you describe this part of the world to people who haven't been here?
Well, it's the bit that they're missing out on. When people come and stay at the Talbot and they've not been to this part of Wales before, a lot of them come from England that have not been to this part before, and I find that tourists tend to either go to Snowdonia or a city break in Cardiff or to Pembrokeshire, and this bit in the middle is often missed out. So projects that CUPHAT are doing as well, and Visit Wales and all the rest of the groups help with that. But no, it's unspoilt. It's Wales's best kept secret, this part of Wales, definitely.
And what's the best thing about living here?
Well, thinking back to the pandemic, it was the best place in the world to be. You didn't just have, when we were allowed to go out for exercise, we didn't just have our own gardens, and most of us do have our own little outdoor space, no matter how big it is. There's no blocks of flats here. There was nobody trapped in, as it were. And when we were allowed out for exercise, you've got such stunning grounds to do it in. If you didn't appreciate it before, you certainly did then.
Yeah, and you've discovered some walking trails in the area, for example. Tell me a few of the local trails.
So I started doing a lot more walking just before COVID, actually, and I've done the elephant walk, which was a lot of fun.
Tell me about the elephant walk.
Oh God, do I have to? Are you going to make me tell the story?
Tell me the background for the elephant walk to start with. Why is it called the elephant walk? And tell me a little bit about your experience.
Well, it kind of ties into the Talbot as well, I guess, doesn't it? So, from what I understand, the elephant walk stemmed from when a travelling circus came through Tregaron. The elephant drank the water, died of lead poisoning, and is supposedly buried behind the Talbot. There's a big rock at the top there of the garden where it's supposed to be buried. But Lampeter University came back in, was it 2010, 2011? Do you remember that? And they did a dig, and they couldn't even find Graham's old dog that he'd buried under there. So they had no hope of finding an elephant. But apparently the elephant took this trail that we walked on. Is that right? Is that the route that they...
More or less.
Yeah,
yes.
More or less. Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, something like that. Anyway, it's a good name for a walk anyway, the elephant walk. So we had this brochure, this booklet that you and the Tregaron Walking Club had come up with. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah.
And there's lots of fabulous walks in there, but we used it that day to go on this elephant walk. And... we got a little bit confused with some of the directions, My friend Christine ended up with a bum in the river. She misplaced her footing. Come on, Christine, light-footed, quick and light. No, she's in. And then a little further on, we came across some sounds of gunshots, and from there we started panicking. And I called you, didn't I? Do you remember?
Yes.
And I said, "We're going the wrong way, aren't we? No, just keep on." And these gunshots kept coming, and then we saw this hut up in the distance, and this man shouting at us. I thought, oh God, we're on somebody's land. We're going to get shot. Because you hear stories about that, of walkers going awry and yeah, and farmers getting a bit handy with their guns and scaring them off. So, oh God, we're going to get shot. And it turns out it was the local rifle range telling us to mind out the way. We're going the wrong way, and we were going to walk across their range. But it wasn't until we got closer that we realised that what he was trying to say. So we avoided that. But yeah, that was an adventure. It's always an adventure. We went to the Havod estate for a walk once, me and Christine, and we came across some Bollywood actors. They'd rented the cottage there, and there was a lady all dressed in her finery, you know, something that you'd never see usually at the Havod estate, and they were filming something. Maybe I'm making too many presumptions, but it looked like a Bollywood film set the way that they'd done it. It was incredible, yeah. And another one of our favourite places is Coed Maen Athir. If I've pronounced that right,
that's lovely.
Okay, and yeah, there was a dog that was following us because we had our dog with us, and he followed us the whole way around, and we named him, and we couldn't get rid of the thing, and we had to find some locals to help us in the end. And then one good few years ago, before we had Larry, I wanted to go out for a birthday walk with Dyfed around Aberystwyth, and I took another one of your books with us, and again we misread the directions and we ended up to our knees in mud walking through a field and Stevie, our little miniature schnauzer, was past his belly in mud. And then we went for a delicious burger and a pint at the Hardmaster afterwards to wash away all the tears.
And mud.
Yeah, and mud.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. So I've seen parts of the countryside in Ceredigion, and I never thought I would well.
Better mud than blood, I say.
Oh god, yeah.
Local traditions, customs. Are you familiar with any local traditions or customs?
Local traditions
What
and
about
customs.
Kalenig? What does Kalenig
Oh
mean
yeah.
here?
There's another story involving you. So, the first year I got introduced to Kalenig, you came round with Catherine, and I can't remember how old Catherine was. She was quite young, probably about 6 or 7. Do you remember?
Yeah.
And she was singing at the doorstep, and I was amazed. I was like, "What's going on here?" And then she stopped singing. I just smiled sweetly at her. "Thank you very much." And you said, "Traditionally, you give money." I was like, "Oh, okay." And it didn't. I'm a bit blonde sometimes, and it didn't quite sink in. And then a little while later, I thought, I was actually supposed to give money to. I'd never come across that before. Never. And Larry hasn't gone out and done Kalenig yet, but our neighbours give her money for it anyway. It's yeah.
Do you have any other people apart from my daughter calling, or has there been some sort of ban?
No ban. No. We have had children round after that, and I have given them money. Yeah, I realised what it was all about after that. I had to ask John and Barbara a bit more detail. Why this child was at my doorstep begging.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like that at all.
It's definitely not begging. Maybe the parents are begging.
Yeah, maybe.
The children who are doing Kalenig are just clearly carrying.
And then of course last year we had the Eisteddfod, which we have no English equivalent for at all. So that was obviously before it came to Tregaron. I'd heard about it, but never been to one.
So how did the Eisteddfod impact or affect your life?
It's still affecting me now. Mentally, I'm still recovering.
I think we all are.
Yeah.
And many of us miss it.
Yeah.
How did it impact on your life professionally and personally? Give me a
professionally and personally.
Yeah, let's go professional first.
So professional, we started meetings at the Talbot for it months in advance, probably good 6 months in advance, about how we were going to adapt things in the Talbot, what extra provisions we had to make for, not so much because it was the Eisteddfod, but because it was the sheer quantity of people. And as a business, you always have to make allowances for big events. Like we've got Tregaron Rock coming up next month, so that's another big day. But no, for the Eisteddfod, it was it was a lot, and there was a lot of people visiting from North Wales as well, and they've got, as you know, quite a different accent. So even the Welsh speaking staff amongst us struggled with some of them. But
what about the week itself? What about the week itself? Were you working the week?
Oh God, yeah. I was working every day.
You didn't take annual leave, did you?
No. Although one of the barmen who is with us still part time, he works at Tesco's. Do you know Stewie? Yeah. So he works at Tesco's, and I got chatting to him one day doing my shopping, and I said, what are you doing for this? He said, I've booked the week off. He said, I'm not trying to get in and out of Tregaron with the traffic and all the people and everything. I've booked the week off. And I said, fancy a job? He said, oh yeah, and he's still a member of staff now, We professionally as well in the business, we learn a lot about ourselves, how to handle big events, how to handle lots of people, how to work even closer with the community than we ever have done before. Our electric was being used. They cut a hole in the window in the restaurant to allow all the wires to go through for this big screen that was on the square. And you know what? That was one of the best things for our business, actually, was the way that they closed off the square, put all those picnic benches out there. People had more room to move, and it was a good week for weather as well, wasn't it? Not too hot, quite mild, but it was weather that everybody enjoyed. And yeah, the big screen was there with S4C playing all day. The community felt even bigger for that week.
The picnic benches certainly were one of the successes for the town, for the square, for the Talbot. Would you like to see semi-permanent picnic?
Yes.
A bit of a hybrid square type of...
Yes, and I've heard the Tregaron Town Council were even considering it for future summers. Not specifically for any event, but just because visitors to Tregaron really enjoyed being out there and feeling like they were, in the community, not just coming to visit the Talbot. Yeah. You
mentioned your work during this Eisteddfod. What about going on the mice, going on the field?
I didn't get chance. I didn't go. I was quite disappointed about that. But Dyfed and his mother took Larry one day, and they loved it. And she got involved with all the Q S4C stuff. And but on another personal note, obviously we were right behind the main stage, our house. So you had no choice some nights to get involved. Like when Dyfed Yuan was on. You could hum along to the tune in the house. You didn't need to buy a ticket.
There's a bit of a candy in there, I think.
Yeah.
You mentioned the elephant story. Any other legends or characters that would portray Tregaron?
Well, there's Henry Richard. He's the statue outside the Talbot, and oh god, I've forgotten his name now, but a gentleman came and did a whole series of pictures and the history of Henry Richard, and it's the exhibition he's done has found a home in the Talbot now. And there was only yesterday we had 2 ladies in for lunch, and they went and had a look round at all the pictures, and they said how fabulous it was. So that's not going anywhere.
No. What do you know personally about Henry Richard?
Not as much as I should, to be honest. One thing, he was the Apostle of Peace. I may have got this wrong, but he was one of the founding members of what is now the UN. Is that right?
Yes,
yeah, there we are.
And he was a member of Parliament as well.
Right, okay.
So,
yeah.
An important part of Tregaron's history.
So important, they named the school after him.
That's important, yes. That's important. As compared to Tumshoncatty, of course.
Oh yes, of course, yes. And I've been to Tumshoncatty's cave.
Have you really?
Yeah, I have, yes.
Right
yes, on another one of our adventures. We weren't shot at or stuck in mud.
And then you hold the book the right way around.
Yeah, that's it.
just on that, Tumshoncatty, then tell us about the visit to the cave. It's just outside Tregaron,
Well, it's a bit further than just outside. Let's not kid ourselves. It's a bit further.
It's further than you think.
Yes, yeah. He went to some efforts of hiding in those days, didn't he?
Yeah. What was the experience like of going to the cave, given the connection with Tregaron?
Yeah, good. Like I said, it was. I was surprised about how far we had to go to see it, and once we got there, the trail to get to the cave. It was.
Who went?
My friend Christine and Tony, my partners in crime. Oh, and my dog Stevie. We're a foursome, including the dog. No, just when you parked up and then you're making your way to the cave, I was always putting myself back in Tumshoncatty's shoes and thinking, God, he really went to some efforts to get to there, didn't he? It was quite remarkable, actually. Yeah. It's good.
Maybe closer to home then. Any other historical sites, locations which you've visited of any significance, or you might recommend visitors to the area to visit? Any places, you've got to go there. There's history there. There's archaeology there. There's nature there. Any other sites?
I always send people to Cors Caron if they want a nice gentle walk, and I tell them about the railway and the fact that it's all wool. Is it underneath? Yeah, on the track there. I'm ashamed to say I've not been to as many historical sites.
You mentioned Havod, in all fairness.
I've been to Havod quite a few times. Yeah. If we're going out a bit further, I love going to Llanaceron, to the house there as well, and the little farmyard there. I've not been to Sorra Mynydd yet. I have to go there, and I know, and I've been to Strata Florida very briefly once, and I need to go on a proper walk around there a bit more. But yeah, it's the trouble when I had the same problem in London. You've got all this fantastic stuff on your doorstep, but you're so busy working that you don't get the chance to see as much of it as you'd like. I've still never been to St Paul's Cathedral, and I'd love to go and do that around the Whispering Tower.
That's a long way to go from Tregaron.
Oh yeah. I digress.
As far as the tourism industry is concerned, you've clearly got experiences in the tourism industry and welcoming of visitors. What's it like to welcome people to Tregaron who've come, in some cases, from other countries, other continents? What's it like? Because you're in a very privileged position there in the Talbot, meeting and greeting and serving their needs.
So what's it like to meet them?
Yeah, what's the experience like? And how do you give that Welsh croeso, that welcome?
People that come to the Talbot from away, they like to feel as if they're being looked after, and to an unfamiliar place. So we get we get all sorts of people: cyclists, motorcyclists, shooters, walkers, people that have just come to visit family that haven't been to the area before, and they've all got different needs and they all require different types of attention. You know, I've lost my train of thought now. Trying to answer the question.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of the kinds of people who come here, where they come from.
Well,
what their impression is as well.
Yeah, so sometimes we get families from France, Australia, America, Canada, that are just travelling the whole of Wales and use us as a stop off, because we're conveniently placed, you know, equal distance to north and south almost. So we're a good base for that. The Dutch love coming here, mostly for the shooting, with WMS. And they're you know, that it's we often get groups of guys coming for shooting or for cycling or whatever it may be, and they'll often leave saying, I'm going to come back and bring my wife because she'd love it round here. And then we know we've won then. Not just the Talbot, but Tregaron. Because they don't just spend their money at the Talbot, you know, they'll spend it in the local shops as well, so it benefits the economy in all sorts of different ways.
You think
that's
you think tourists coming to the Tregaron area, the Cambrian Mountains, is important?
Oh God, yeah, and I think it's going to be some time before it gets anything like Pembrokeshire or Snowdonia with that level of tourism. You never know, it might do one day, hopefully. But then some people would argue that would spoil it. So I think there's a fine balance, isn't there, to be had? Because, you know, small villages and communities at the same time appreciate people coming and spending their money, but they don't want to feel like they're being overrun. And I think even in a market town like Tregaron, there can be a tendency of that as well.
If you could take a visitor to the area, a tourist, if you could take a visitor to the area, a tourist, to somewhere special, where would you take them?
How far a distance have I got?
The Cambrian Mountains, definitely. Yeah. You mentioned you haven't been to Sowermanny, so.
No, I haven't been to Sowermanny.
They would probably take you there.
Yeah, that would be nice. Yeah. Where would I take them? I'd take them to the Havod. I do like the Havod estate. Devil's Bridge.
What is in the Havod estate that really, I can see it in the way you say it and your body language, what is there to see and do?
The walking is fantastic. The waterfalls, the caves, the history of the place, and yeah, it's just those forestry walks I love. It's just there's not very many places that you get like that. Obviously there are different forestry walks around here, but it's something special.
And are you familiar with the heritage of how the walks and trails have been formed? How familiar are you with the past of the forest and why it looks like it does today?
I know the trails were no. Hang on a minute, I'm getting confused now. Because there's a ladies' walk, isn't there? I've been using the red trail for quite some time now because that encompasses all the bits that I want to see, and it's a much nicer, longer walk. But I've done when I first went there with Barbara, we did the ladies' walk a couple of times, and I think that's the Victorian ladies did that walk.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah. And there's a gentleman's walk. So yeah, I can't imagine Victorian ladies doing that kind of walking back in those days. I'm assuming they didn't wear the dresses that you often see in
And there was no lycra,
picture
of course.
postcards.
No lycra. And
No lycra, no good tread on their shoes. No.
What do you think tourists do, or what do you know that tourists do when they come to the Cambrian Mountains?
Well, like I said, cycling, motorbiking, walking, fishing, bird watching, some of them. If they ever ask me where to go to see the kites, and then obviously you don't have to go far because we've got quite a lot of red kites in the area, but Nantarawian is always a good place to go.
And you've touched on this, that the fact that this is a part of Wales which not a lot of people come to.
Yeah.
And you preempted there the idea that one day more people might come here. What could be the challenges that little market town communities like Tregaron could face?
Infrastructure, I think mainly. The Eisteddfod certainly put a light on how traffic and parking could be improved.
What about making the most of visitors? How can we get more out of their pockets and their wallets, type of thing? What should we be doing to ensure that those who come spend more and stay longer?
I think
That's okay.
that's a big question. I'm stuck now.
That's fine. That's fine.
Sorry. Cut that bit.
And I'll put it on Instagram.
I don't know the answer.
What local jobs, local work, the local industries, what do we have here in terms of employment for people? What are you aware of? You have touched on several of them already, but what work do people do in a place like Tregaron?
Well, obviously farming is a big aspect of the work around here. Families with their lands, public sector, the school and health and social workers is quite prominent around here. From what I've been told, the Talbot might be the biggest private employer in the area in terms of number of staff.
That's pretty much captures the local economy as it is.
Yeah.
And of course a lot of people go out of Tregaron to work.
Yes, I think a lot of young people find that there's not as a wide range of opportunities here for what they want to do.
If we could attract 50 more jobs into the town, have you ever thought about how that could be possible? Because the impact of 50 jobs in the town itself would be significant for the businesses on the high street, the pubs, the restaurants.
Well, I think if that medical centre in the field behind the Talbot, if that had gone ahead, which I don't think it is now, that would have been a big boost to the community and the economy.
Nature, wildlife, wild things. We have a lot. We have a lot in this area, apparently. You mentioned that the kites. Are you aware of any other wildlife which you've come across?
Well, do you know what? At certain times of the year, I always enjoy going to Coastal and seeing the Canada geese. They're fantastic on that big lake there. When you park up at the car park and you turn right on that lake, that's something I always enjoy.
And do you hear them where you live?
Yeah, they fly over our house.
Early in the morning sometimes. I can hear that. Going over. I'm thinking,
our dog's ears perk up, and he's like, "Where's that coming from?" Yeah.
So so Canada geese, and you've got the red kite.
And at this time of year as well, or bit earlier, going for walks where you see all the little lambs and the fields. That's always heartwarming to see. Not wildlife as such, but no, it's
yes, it's still
even for tourists, even just seeing lambs in the field, you know, it touches everybody.
And we've just come into this, you know, the seasonal experience which you can get here, because we do get snow.
Well, apparently it's going to plummet down to 7 degrees again next week, and it looks like my boiler's broken.
Bluebells, any experiences of discovering bluebells?
Yeah, bluebells, snowdrops I've seen. There's it's this time I have always enjoyed the spring, but you appreciate it even more when you're living out here in the countryside. Yeah.
And what kind of welcome is there for visitors to the area in your mind,
Well, always a warm welcome. Always a warm welcome.
How do you think we should be welcoming people in terms of what we say or how we say it? What do you say when?
Do you know, it's fun. I've got two different experiences of this at the Talbot actually. The first is there was a Welsh couple that came to eat in the restaurant one night, and they refused to have me serve them at the table because I didn't speak Welsh. Well, that's not very welcoming. And then on the other hand, there was a couple in the restaurant eating, and there was a group of local girls in there all speaking Welsh, having a birthday party, and the couple turned to me and said, "Are they going to be speaking Welsh all night?" And I thought, you know, those two different they're very contrasting, aren't they? And they were visitors to the area, that couple with the birthday party there, and I thought, you know, you've come to this area not really understanding anything about it before you've checked into the hotel, you know.
And you wouldn't say that in France, would you?
No, exactly, you wouldn't, or in Spain, you know. You wouldn't. And people don't understand that this is a very Welsh speaking part of Wales. I didn't understand it when I first moved here, and certainly making the effort to learn a bit of Welsh has benefited me. But then for Welsh people to refuse to speak to me because I don't speak Welsh hurts. Yeah, you know, that's very hurtful. So I think visitors can be a bit more understanding, and I think locals can also be a bit more understanding. Of course, those are very isolated incidences, but it tells a story, I think.
Yeah. Yes, it's not respecting where you're going or
where you're from.
Not respecting who you have standing in front of you as well.
Yeah.
You've got two contrasting situations there.
Yeah.
You have started learning Welsh, which is good, and you are picking up things, and I know you're using the language as often and as best as you can. Would you like to learn more in the future?
I would, yes.
If you get the time.
Yeah. Well, if only to understand my daughter a bit more when she's speaking Welsh. And it's funny, I can pick up certain words in sentences and string them together but it's speaking Welsh that I'm finding the challenge. I can't roll my R's very well. So when I do say a few words in Welsh, my husband says, no, you don't say it like that, you say it like this. I said, I'm trying.
Changes over the years since you've been here in Tregaron, there will have been some.
Yeah.
There has been some. What have been the significant changes? Good, bad?
Well, I think I touched earlier on the drinking culture. 13 years ago, there was a strong contingent of young people that would spend 2-3 nights of the week out drinking quite heavily. A strong contingent of older local people having social drinks. and money's tight these days, and of course the contingent of younger people, they've grown up and had kids and got married, so their social life has changed, and the other pubs in the area, because I think we were only one of two pubs when we first moved here 13 years ago. No, three, sorry. The rugby club, the Clough and us. And the Clough has had different owners. The Sunny Hill has opened up in that time. And the rugby club has got different management now as well. The culture of drinking in Tregaron has changed, but also we've changed as a business as well. We're much more focused on the food and accommodation.
Has anything impacted on the quality of your life over the last 13 years?
At the beginning, it was an adjustment not having everything on my doorstep, but then you learn to rely on internet shopping a lot more. Not just shops, but leisure activities. With Larry, we have to travel a lot further just to go for bowling or swimming. The nearest Tregaron swimming pool was closed since we've been here. I used to use that quite regularly. I used to enjoy going to aqua aerobics there, and Larry loves her swimming now. So to have to travel 20 minutes in the car to get to the nearest swimming pool, whereas in Ramsgate it was a 10-minute walk. It's the infrastructure and having to travel. And before we moved here and I first met John and Barbara, we went to the Harbour Master for a meal, and I can't believe that we went 40 minutes in the car to get to the next decent restaurant to go and have a meal. It's things like that you have to get used to. And there's a couple of places in Aberystwyth we really like to go and eat, but then you have to bear in mind getting home, because taxis are expensive because of how far you've got to go. It's the social side and the personal side that's taken a lot more getting used to the changes there.
If you could change anything about Tregaron, what could that possibly be? Take your time to answer.
Think carefully. What would I change about Tregaron? It's difficult because I've grown to love the place, so it's difficult to try and pick faults. Nowhere's perfect, but what would I change? the thing
swimming pool?
Yes, just having a swimming pool back would be nice.
Things we might have lost.
I think money could be better spent in Tregaron. It's funny actually, because that old school, or what was the old library, that's just been bought, and there's a thing on social media at the moment getting a questionnaire out as to what it can be used for, and they're specifically asking how can they use the building to benefit young people in an educational purpose. Well, it was a library. You've just closed the library. That's frustrating. And I think the building probably needed a lot of work doing to it, from what I understand. But it was quite a funny question to ask, really.
If you had a magic wand.
If I had a magic wand.
For one day.
Yeah.
And you were walking around Tregaron.
Well, I'd pick up all the dog poo off the pavements with my magic wand. That really annoys me. It's not welcoming to visitors, and all the locals hate it.
That's one thing.
That's one thing.
Two more waves of the wand in Tregaron. What would you do?
I'd put a swimming pool back in.
Okay, that's the second thing.
And I'd have something indoor for kids to do. Well, not just kids, but I'd have some sort of. We've got a leisure centre, and with all best intentions, they're running it as best they can as a community venture. But something indoors, leisure-wise, for people to do. I'm not quite sure what that would be, but we get a lot of rain in Wales and in this part of the country, and it would be nice maybe that's where the 50 jobs could come from.
lots of communities have community centres.
Yeah.
And whilst we don't have a official community centre
Yeah.
here in Tregaron, I think we have lots of community buildings.
Yeah.
Buildings that are open to the public, but formalising something as a community centre always creates some sort of budlum, bit of vibrance in the community. I always feel. If you were walking in Aberystwyth this afternoon,
Yeah.
and somebody asked you where you were from, where would you say you were from, Tracy?
Tregaron.
And if you were asked the same question in London, where were you from?
Tregaron.
And if you were asked the same question again, finally, in New York, where are you from, Tracy?
Tregaron.
Okay, that's an interesting answer to three different questions.
Well, this is home.
Yeah.
If somebody asked me where I'm originally from,
Right.
that's Kent.
Yeah.
That's Ramsgate.
Yeah.
But it's not home anymore. London wasn't home, really. Obviously 2.5 years doesn't feel like long enough to make anywhere home, but Tregaron is home. Yeah. And whenever I go back to London or Ramsgate, I'm always happy to come home. Yeah.
Is there anything you would like to add? Is there something that you'd like to add to this recording about your life living here in Tregaron in the Cambrian Mountains?
I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. If we do ever move out of Tregaron itself, it wouldn't be far. It's a beautiful part of the world to live in. For the sense of community and the landscape around you, we're very lucky. And I say we, hoping that I'm included in the community now after being here for 13 years. Yeah.
Tracy Watkin, thank you for your time and answering the questions so honestly. Appreciate it. Appreciate you giving up your time today. Thank you. Diolch yn fawr iawn i ti.
Croeso.